I have 7 o'clock now, so I will call the meeting to order. This is the Dartmouth Conservation Commission, and we're starting our meeting for Tuesday, May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m. As you probably have already guessed, we're conducting this meeting remotely, and that's as a result of Governor Healy on March 29, 2023, signing an order which further extended the ability for municipalities to conduct hybrid or remote meetings when that is extended until March 31, 2025. The hearings are accessible to the public. Our website and agendas did note the meeting ID and passcode, and there is an ability for those who participate to do so by using the wave your hand feature or waving their hand, somehow getting our attention. I'd ask that you keep yourself muted unless you are speaking, because the ambient noise will disrupt presentations. With that, we do have a quorum, and this meeting was properly noticed on our website in accordance with the rules and regulations of the town of Dartmouth. So the first matters are going to be administrative, and the first is to approve the minutes of April 23, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second on the motion, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so that motion passes unanimously. The next is to approve the field trip reports of May 14, 2024. I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
A second. We have a second on the motion. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. The final administrative matter is to receive the minutes of the May 14, 2024 meeting. I have a motion to that effect.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We are now moving on to our field trip reports. The first field trip report is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 2412, from TEC Associates for right-of-way vegetation management within the 100-foot buffer zone to various resource areas along the Massachusetts Coastal Railroad on lands described as Map 60, Lot 4, Map 61, Lot 44, Map 62, Lot 9, Map 63, Lot 2, and Map 63, Lot 21, respectively. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, this is a standard request we get just about every year. As for the railway management for the Mass Coastal Railroad, which runs parallel and just north of excuse me, I-95, 195. The work does not occur in resource areas. The work occurs for area along the railroad, so it's generally elevated. It's segregated topographically from the wetland resources. It does fall within 100 feet, so it is buffer zone, even though it's a used corridor. They do have their vegetation management plan and their yearly operation plan. And this conforms to all of that by the state, as well as signed off by the commission. So having said all that, staff is recommending a -3 determination.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions regarding staff's recommendation? I don't see any, so I'll entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination on this request for determination of applicability.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. The second field trip report is a request for certificate of compliance, DEP file 15-1985. That's RCC 24-13. It's from Chris Pettis. I'm butchering that. I'm sorry, Chris. For the construction of an addition to an existing dwelling within 100 feet, within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland on land described as map 166, lot 48. That's otherwise known as 28 Althea Avenue. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Quick rewind, this was applied for at the last public hearing, on May 14th. Upon doing a site visit, we noticed that there was a lot of debris strewn about the, rear yard area in the buffer zone and into the wetland. We told them that we would not recommend an approval at that time and gave them until May 23rd to get the material out by hand. They removed the material by, I believe it was May 22nd, May 21st. We were out there on the 22nd. The site does not look at all impaired whatsoever. The building conforms with the plan of record. So staff is recommending a complete certificate of compliance at this time.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions of staff regarding the recommendation? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance for DEP file 15-1985.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote.
Second.
Richard,
Second, yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our final field trip report is also a request for certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2336, RCC 2415. That's to construct a barn with associated fence and clearing of invasive plants, pruning of trees, planting shrubs, and repairing stone walls in the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 12. Lots 15 and 16, that's otherwise known as 872 Division Road. Again, Mark, what is staff's recommendation regarding this request?
Yes, we're going to recommend a complete certificate of compliance. All the corrective work and proposed work was done in accordance with the plan of record. And of note on this site, there is a vernal pool. The vernal pool was, by observation last week, was very healthy. There were egg masses in it, numerous egg masses and amphibians. So that helps to justify the recommendation to issue a complete certificate. The environment is very stable in the area and has recovered from those impacts that were caused.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions regarding the recommendation of staff? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2336.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Yes.
and I'm yes. That motion passes unanimously. Excuse me. We're moving on now to our public hearings, and the first is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2720. That's NOI 24-6. It's on the notice of intent from Edward Borges, care of Russell Waldron of Applied Ecological Sciences, to construct a gravel driveway that crosses a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank and a single-family home within the 100-foot buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. It's on land described as map 65, lot 48. It's on Bergeron Lane. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
The seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Jim. I'm sorry, Jim's not here. Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so that motion passes unanimously. Is there here, someone here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Yep. Good evening, everybody. Russ Waldron
Good evening.
for Bergeron Lane. So we finally got our completed engineering plan set, which I am going to bring up here. Oh, for some reason I'm disabled as far as sharing goes. I guess somebody has to allow me to do this.
I think it just popped up. You should be now.
Yeah. All right, let me, and that should be it. Okay. Screen share. Oops, keeps coming up with, oh, here we go. There. Good?
Good to go.
All right, great. So, this has gone from a driveway and single-family home to a driveway to a single-family home construction area. The house has been tweaked and turned to get it and all of its components out of the buffer zone. So it's down to a driveway crossing. And like was just stated, it involves 2 wetland crossings, one here and a longer one right here. So I put a construction sequence together and I did it by kind of how my brain works, very sequentially, and I broke it down into 4 sections. The first section is this part of the driveway up to this 8-inch pipe, and the second is up to the stream crossing, and or maybe might have been 3 sections, and then from there to the house. All of the utilities coming off Bergeron are going to be underground following the driveway route up to, I'll see if I can blow this up a little for you, up to the stream crossing, where they're going to come up above to a pole here, span the crossing to another pole here, and then return subsurface to the house. So the first crossing is going to be handled with an 8-inch concrete pipe. There are going to be block retaining walls along the sections of the driveway that are proximate to the wetland crossings through here and through here. And the crossing itself will be an open bottom concrete culvert with wing walls supporting wing walls. So as part of the my construction sequence, and the applicant, Ed Borges, is the contractor, and he does this professionally. So, he may have, vary from it for, time expedience or cost effectiveness. That's, entirely up to him. But basically, the way I have it written out, as each section of the driveway is, cleared, stumped, grubbed, existing material taken out, it goes immediately into a truck and hauled off site. Nothing is going to be used as a storage area outside the driveway layoff. And so that'll continue, over the full length, and, base material, once it gets stumped, grubbed, excavated, base material we brought in. So, it gives a good firm, travel way for the truck to keep up with the excavation and continue hauling everything out. The block walls will be set in place. The utilities will be set in place. And I believe the first section I have going up to this crossing right here where the pipe goes in, once that's completed, they'll move on to the second. Same scenario, everything gets hauled out as it's excavated. And as material, the driveway material is, needed, it will be brought in, dumped and graded. Whoops. And so that's how I've got it laid out. So like I said, the house is out of the buffer zone. The septic system is, you know, preliminarily cited based on soil type. This will be finalized once the perk tests, you know, it might have to go here, might have to go over here. But it will be kept, the engineer is pretty much only, he'll be able to keep it out of the buffer zone. You know, he'll find some soils up in here or here to get it done. The replication area has, excuse me, expanded by quite a bit. So the total BVW alteration is 4,027.9 square feet, total 100-foot buffer, and this is permanent disturbance, is 9,213, 15 linear feet of bank has not changed. So the combined BVW and buffer zone disturbance is 13,240 square feet. The replication area, which was originally 4,000 and change, has grown to 7,000 square feet, which is 53% of the combined wetland and buffer zone permanent disturbance. We're showing a 6-foot wide access path from the house construction site down to the replication area. Hopefully, you know, that can get done in a nice, neat, straight shot. Again, that will be determined once this area is cleared. And then, you know, before any construction starts here, we can get this excavated, or my hope is, my plan is to get this excavated and prepped for planting before, you know, any construction starts up here. Especially if the septic system is going to have to move somewhere. And the route from A to B, like I said, hopefully will be straight. If it's not, you know, it'll be routed so as to, you know, pose the least amount of disturbance, temporary disturbance possible within the buffer zone. You know, it may be zigzagged, or we just don't know that. We don't know what's out there, and Ed'll have to, you know, once he gets back in there, he'll have to pick out a route for the excavator, and he's planning on having a truck, a 6-wheel dump, you know, able to, you know, traverse this area. So again, once material is excavated out, it can either get hauled up here to the storage stockpile or taken off site immediately. Once it's all prepped and the, you know, planting material, which I think I had spec'd out 18 inches of peat moss loam mix, then the rest of it will be completed by using a bobcat, you know, to shuttle material and plant material back and forth. And so any portion of this access that, you know, we decide is disturbed beyond the point where it could not recover naturally, it will get, you know, restored to its as close to its natural state or pre-disturbance state as possible. And that's it, about it. I don't think I missed anything. Nope. That about covers it.
Okay, thank you. Mark, I'd be very curious to hear staff's comments on the application and plans as presented.
Sure, if I could ask Russell to leave the plan on, and can we go back to where the driveway comes off of Bergeron? I'll follow the same path that you did.
Yep.
First and foremost, a couple of things. I apologize to the commission for sending 23 pages of information to you on this, but I thought it was essential at the time, as we had not yet received the revised plans, and I wanted the commission to be wholly aware that this process has taken over 3 months for a single-family site development. I have reviewed this project at least 5 times. the comments on 5. We have finally received, and I sent to you plans that meet my concerns and allow me now to make a recommendation to the commission. But a couple of things we should talk about. First and foremost, you will notice that the driveway daylights to Bergeron Lane in an existing Algonquin, I believe it's Algonquin, utility easement. They have presented us, the applicant has presented us with documentation from Algonquin indicating that they will allow the access to cross the easement as long as that access in no way inhibits their ability to access the easement at any time for any reason, specifically emergency response. So there was a question raised that they can't access it. Yes, they can, as far as I can tell. They have the documentation which allows that. As we move away from Bergeron Road to that first bend right by the 8-inch pipe that Russell was talking about, we have a wetland crossing, BVW, right on the edge of the easement. It is a scrubby forested condition, but I would say the forest is, in terms of size, is diminutive. They're not massive trees in that area. It's not particularly a sopping wetland, sort of, you know, one of the kind of the higher edge of a wetland, so to speak. But nonetheless, it is wetland as they come across. As we make the turn, it's very close to the stone wall and the property line. Hopefully they meet zoning setback requirements. I don't think that there are big setback requirements relative to zoning for driveways. It is not a structure, so I think they're rather lenient. As we cross through, we're going through buffer zone and BVW. And I say that because this is very critical on this particular project. Because as we well know, buffer zone under the state act is regulated, but not very severely. However, under our local bylaw, buffer zones are regulated and protected, or they're regulated similarly to resource areas with the same wetland values. So under the bylaw, the buffer zone takes on a lot more characteristic. There is a lot of buffer zone impact here. Very little of it has to do with the house, the septic system as it's being proposed, or the well location. Those are all one-uplands. What it has to do with is access. Now, by law, the applicant is certainly allowed to access a remote upland portion by crossing wetlands, even if it exceeds 5,000 square feet. This does not. If it did, it would be a limited project. So they have the right to do what they're doing. However, having the right to do it under a limited project, we don't necessarily have limited projects in the bylaw. So we have 4,000 some odd square feet of wetland impact. We have an additional 5,000 to 6,000 square feet of impact to buffer zone between the road crossing and the replication area. So that number became a very big issue for me. Not that I expect that the buffer zone is going to completely be replicated. That's an impractical thought, but I looked at the replication portion of the project as it was originally proposed as at, you know, for 4,100, 4,200 square feet, being somewhat inadequate for the 13,000 square feet of impact to buffer zone and to. So having said that, we get to the crossing, the stream crossing, and it meets the standard. It's an open bottom box culvert. The retaining walls are vertical walls as per the detail that was in the plan. So they have minimized to the greatest extent the impacts to the wetlands for the crossing itself. And in fact, they meet the standard for wildlife protection and hydrology with the wetland crossing. Russell, if you can move over to the replication area now. So originally, the replication area was that lower portion that you see here. And basically connect, close that from wetland flag 21, A21 to A29. Everything to the south of that was in fact the replication area originally. And I made several comments that I thought that the replication area should be enlarged to account for impacts to buffer zone, and kind of incorporate the wetland, and that will be a higher wetland elevation wise than, you know, the stream itself. And it would able to offset some of the buffer zone impacts that are being caused, you know, separate and distinct from the house itself. They have enlarged it to 7,000 square feet. I think that is far more reasonable an approach. Their plant specifications are reasonable and consistent with what we require. But I still have a question, and I think Russell alluded to it. We see a proposed 6-foot wide path to the replication area depicted in with the broken lines. And that's a nice starting point, but we're talking about bobcats, we're talking about trucks, we're talking about possibly excavators going in there. And my sense is that 6 feet is probably a fairly conservative number, but it's a little impossible to predict. We don't know the exact routing. This would be a very appropriate routing if they could do it. And I would insist that they stick as close to this as possible. But I understand that they may get in there and there may be a tree somewhere between the 100-foot and the 50-foot buffer lines that they would prefer going around, and it would make total sense from an environmental perspective. So what I've chosen to do in the conditions, which I sent you some recommended conditions or modifications to our standard conditions, is when they get to a point where they've completed the large scale work relative to the replication area, that we go out and revisit and determine whether they have to provide more replication or not, or whether the replication remains adequate. I don't know that we can predict that right now. I also don't know that it would be reasonable to deny on that particular point at this point. So I think we would certainly revisit this at the earliest possible time possible. And I believe Russell said, and Russell, correct me if I'm wrong, you'd like to have the replication at least excavated out and, you know, shaped before you start constructing the house and other things. I think that's what I heard you say.
Yep, correct.
So we have a chance to, before there's a house in place, to make those kinds of decisions, you know, according to their work schedule. Having said all of that, the one other thing I need to remind the commission, although it is not necessarily directly germane to this proposal, as was the case in a previous proposal we saw a few weeks back. We are still talking at the town level about whether there is going to be enforcement on Bergeron Lane for the unauthorized paving, which this lot could be a party to. However, again, I don't think that that is enough to deny or hold up this project per se. Even if Bergeron Lane was what it was, they would still be proposing this, and it would make sense in that case too. So having said all that, I am prepared to recommend a standard order of conditions to include our standard replication conditions. But what I've done is I've modified two of those. I've modified one condition, special condition 41, which is our replication section, which reads, where project site areas are designated for resource replacement, replication, or restoration, whether by approved project impact violation or as result of an enforcement order, all work should conform with the following protocols, and there are typically A through G. A, B, C, A and B stay the same. I'm recommending C change to all planting and restoration work will be completed prior to the issuance of any type of occupancy permit, temporary or permanent. And upon completion, a conservation agent shall be notified so that an inspection of the said work can be made prior to the close of the growing season. Then D, E, F, and G remain the same. And I added an H. Following the completion of the replication restoration area as designated on the plan, a conservation agent shall be notified so that an inspection of said work can be made to determine if additional replication, restoration work, and an amended order shall be required prior to the issuance of a certificate of compliance. So my recommendation is standard order of conditions, standard replication conditions as modified as I've just read.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have a question regarding the applicant's presentation or the staff's recommendation? I can't see anybody because all I can see is the share screen.
Oh, you want me to get rid of that?
Please. Yeah. Otherwise, I can't recognize anybody. Any commissioner have any question? Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? I don't see anybody. So at this point, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions, which include our standard erosion control and standard replication as modified. Mr. Garrett read the modifications this evening, but it's a modification to condition 41C and an addition of modification of 41H.
So moved. Second.
With the seconded roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Good luck, Mr. Borges.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. We're moving on now to our public hearing number 2, and that's hearing on DEP file 15-2730, NOI 24-19. It's on the notice of intent for ecological restoration from Thomas Hardman to eradicate existing Phragmites and any invasive species within a bordering vegetated wetland, the 100-foot buffer zone, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regs are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. It's on land described as map 113, lots 30 and 30-1 or 5. It's 1, 5, or 15 High Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
So moved.
We have a second on that, please?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard.
I must recuse myself.
Okay. Richard Mallon is recusing himself from this. So Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat. Nat, I think you muted. I think you might be.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. This is one that we had a request for a continuance.
Yes, we got an email request today, requesting a continuance was no date specific. They're working on methodology text and revising plans. We have the option of continuing to June 11th or June 25th.
I would recommend where they're still working on it and didn't give us a date, we take the latter of the two.
I'm comfortable either way.
I think we should, because we might end up having to continue it again on June 11th.
Okay,
So that was June 25th, right?
Yep.
At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until June 25, 2024 at 7 PM.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Recuse.
Oh, you recused yourself. I'm sorry. Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. And I'll mention to anybody in the audience who wanted to know about what was happening on this matter, there will be no additional notification, so please mark your calendars accordingly, and you're more than welcome to attend the June 25th public hearing. We're going now to the third, and it's a public hearing on the request for an amended permit and conditions. DPW PB 0006 AOOC 24-1. It's from Ronald Oliveira to modify the permitted single-family home and associated site grading and layout, Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws, at map 65, lot 30-6, otherwise known as 2 Serenity Lane. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard, you in on it?
Yes.
Okay. Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes. That passes unanimously. Is there somebody here this evening on behalf of the applicant? There's a raise your hand for,
that Chris is the engineer, of record. I
Yep,
think he unmuted himself.
Yep, cool. So yeah, for the record, Chris Vandenberg with Civil Environmental Consultants here on behalf of the client. Would you like me to share my screen and show you the plan at all?
certainly.
Yeah. All right, can you all see that?
Now I can, yes.
Yeah, beautiful. So yep, this is where we're requesting an amended order of conditions. The plan has changed with the only change on the plan was the addition of this room, family room somewhere in this vicinity. So in order to achieve no additional work, no additional land clearing or anything of such, the house got shifted over, I think, yeah, to the south a bit. I can't remember what the original plan showed. But the original silt fence line, that did not change with this new plan. So we're able to maintain the same amount of limit of work. The well was already there, so that was where it was, and we just simply shifted the house over to the south, and that was it. Septic stayed the same. Like I said, limit of work did not change. And that was it.
Okay. Mark, what is staff's recommendations or observations regarding this request?
Yeah, I think Chris was pretty accurate. I mean, the house slightly enlarged, shifted position a little bit. The wetland area, if you're looking at the plan, is at the top center, just above where it says lot 7. It's a little corner of a isolated vegetated wetland or freshwater wetland under the bylaw. This is not being heard under the state act. It's only being heard under the bylaw. That's why we have not used the term order of conditions, because we do not issue orders of conditions under the bylaw. We issue permits with conditions. So the work is pretty much the same. It hasn't really, the configurations haven't changed. There's no really additional impact to the offsite wetlands. So staff is recommending to issue a permit with standard conditions as per the plan. This plan you're looking at which is dated March 14th, 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard? I don't see anybody. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. On this matter, I'll entertain a motion to issue a permit with the standard conditions based on the plan of March 14, 2024 that was disclosed this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going on to the fourth public hearing. It's a public hearing on DEP file 15-2735, NOI 2422. It's on the notice of intent from Sasha Rodriguez for the construction of a family home with gravelled or paved, driveway and associated grading in the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02 and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. It's on land described as map 34, lot 2-2. It's on Bakerville Vineyards lot 5. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
That motion passes, and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, as I recall, this may be the matter where we had a concern whether it's premature to have brought it.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman. For the commission, Bakerville Vineyard is a subdivision that was approved by this commission for road work and stormwater drainage back probably a year and a half ago. Work began on the road construction, but stopped abruptly, and no real work has occurred beyond the construction access and the clearing of the road down to the cul-de-sac area. The cul-de-sac has not been shaped out yet, I don't believe. The engineer, the applicant, and their representative filed a notice of intent to permit a lot, which is at the end of the cul-de-sac, which is one of the farthest lots into the subdivision. And as you folks know, we're now on the online portal for permitting, and that allows every department to comment. Planning board and DPW were very quick to respond, indicating that the road had not been put in, the utilities had not been put in, and no surety or performance bond was put in to assure that that work would be done to service the lots within the subdivision. And the planning board needs to either see the road or have the surety in place to release the lot for development. Now, again, a subdivision was created, the lots were created. However, they have not been released for development because the infrastructure to support them is not there. That raised a red flag for me. I have a very difficult time permitting projects on lots that are not yet approved for development or that don't exist. We've seen this before We're seeing it a little bit more frequently now with a turnover in the consulting world. We're getting a lot of these premature filings. And it was my assessment that it was premature. I shared that with the chair and he agreed. The applicant's agent, Farland Corp., suggested that they would, be willing to have this continue until either construction or surety was posted. Mr. Surety will be coming, but to my, as of today, I have not been notified that occurred. Lot has not been released. Having said all that, I am recommending to continue this to either the 25th or maybe the July 9th meeting. Only in that, we're already, approaching June 1st. And I'm not sure whether there are going to be releases or not, whether work is going to be done. I do know from DPW commenting that several inspections were scheduled and canceled because the work never started. Now, part of that is because of the weather with the rain. It's pretty sloppy site out there right now, but from what we know, the sedimentation erosion control devices are still intact and functional, but it is premature to consider this as a viable application at this time.
Yeah, Mark, I agree with you. And as you know, I understand the need to try to get ahead of the curve. But at this point, I just think from a process or procedure standpoint, we don't have the authority to entertain this yet. And I think the suggestion of the first meeting in July, I forgot the date you mentioned, would make
July
the
9th.
most sense.
July 9th.
July 9th, thank you, would make the most sense. And if the applicant's able to do the work in that short a period of time, that's pretty great. I'd be, sort of impressed and surprised, but I think they certainly could get the surety in place in that time. And they have the permission, we gave it to them, as well as planning board gave them the permission to construct the roadway. So there is an order of conditions for roadway construction and what have you, and the planning board approved what they designed for the roadway and its location. So that should probably be the first priority. And then the lots would be released for development, and then it would be appropriate for us to entertain the request of a notice of intent on any particular lot within that subdivision. Does any commissioner have any questions?
I drive by that lot every day, and there has not been much progress of late. Although today I did notice there was a bulldozer being dropped off, so potentially they'll pick things up. So July 9th makes sense to me.
Thank you, Nat, for that personal observation as well. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this particular matter? Don't want to cut you off. I don't see any, but at this juncture, I'll entertain the motion to continue this public hearing until July 9, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe.
Joe, you're muted.
You're muted, Joe.
Sorry. Yes.
It's okay. Thank you. And Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. As I said previously on these continued matters, if there is anybody in the audience that wants to be heard, please mark your calendars. You won't get another notice from the town. So there'll be no mailings. It will be up to you to put it on your calendar. We're moving on to the 5th, which is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2730 NOI 24-18. It's on the notice of intent from Walter Shepard and Christopher Zamito, trustees, for permission to remove a 14 what's LF, but 14 LF wooden
Linear
bulkhead.
feet.
Okay. And replace it with I learned something every day, with a 38 plus or minus LF stone revetment on the coastal bank, construct wooden stairs to the beach from a wooden walkway, and place a row of armoring boulders, along a down gradient portion of the remaining wooden bulkhead at Round Hills South Beach. The regulations here are 310 CMR, 10.02, 10.27, and 10.30, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaw. It's on land further described as maps 91 and 94, lots 4 and 4 respectively at 307 Smith Neck Road. I'll entertain a motion at this juncture to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
I will recuse myself.
Okay, Richard Mallon is recusing himself from this matter. So Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Is there somebody here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the
Good
record, my
evening.
name is Alan Haru. This evening, I'm representing Round Hill Community Corporation and Christopher Zamito, owners of Assessors Map 91 Lot 4 and Map 94 Lot 4 at South Beach. This property is immediately east of the town beach at Round Hill. The record plan is entitled Site Plan Showing Proposed Stone Revetment. It's dated March 25th, 2024. Let me share my screen. So the applicants propose to remove 14 linear feet of unstable wooden bulkhead in this area here. This is the bulkhead in the old coffer dam for the Charles W. Morgan that Colonel Green built back in the 1920s. And so this is a wooden bulkhead all around here and a parking area. So this northerly end of the bulkhead was severely damaged in the storm on December 19th, 2023. So what we would propose is to remove 14 linear feet of that bulkhead and a whaler that runs into the coastal bank that's now unstable. Construct 38 linear feet of stone revetment, place a row of armoring boulders along a down gradient section of the wooden bulkhead, and construct wooden stairs to the beach from the end of an existing wooden walkway. So over here on the other side of the parking area, there's an existing wooden walkway, and we want to just put a couple steps down to the beach. There's about a 30-inch drop. This has been an altered reach of shoreline for many years, predating coastal wetland regulations. And the purpose of the proposed work is to stabilize the existing shoreline and increase the public safety aspects of this quasi-public shoreline reach. The proposed replacement coastal engineering structure is designed to minimize adverse effects on adjacent or nearby coastal beaches due to changes in wave action. We received a letter from Jesse Ledick, Assistant Director, the Mass Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, dated May 10th, 2024, which lists 4 conditions to avoid adverse effects to the resource area habitats and avoid a prohibited take of state-listed wildlife species. We accept these conditions. The first being that work associated with the project, including bulkhead removal and revetment installation, shall not be conducted during the period April 1st through August 31st. As the chairman stated, the DEP issued a file number SE15-2730, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. There's pictures here on the plan of the portion of the bulkhead that's unstable, and this whaler here. This whole section of the bulkhead is unstable, and you can see it's being washed out from behind. And what we'd like to do is just connect it to an existing stone foundation that Colonel Green built back in the 20s for a building that was washed away during the hurricane of 38. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Appreciate that, Alan. Mark, I'd be interested in staff's comments and observations on this request.
Yeah, I think that this is a necessary repair. From the pictures that are on the plan, you can see that the existing wooden bulkhead is being undermined by wave action. There's no protection there. The whalers are damaged. It's a matter of changing the material from wood to stone and concrete, which would have little impact to the coastal resources in question. Placing boulders on the upper end of the coastal beach would not be a detriment, as it would be there to protect the inland areas behind the bank, the armored bank. So I think it does meet of the regulations, the coastal regulations specifically. Having said that, staff is recommending that standard order of conditions be issued with an additional condition that reads, no work shall occur during the period of April 1st through August 31st to protect both nesting and general habitats of the local seasonal shorebird populations as reported by Natural Heritage in their May 10th, 2024 comment letter to the notice of intent filing. Alan did mention that there were 4 conditions. Conditions 2 through 4, really, we're talking about protecting the nesting habitat and the general habitats and the foraging habitats of these coastal shorebirds. And that would be accomplished by not doing work between April 1st and August 31st. And the condition that no work shall occur between April 1st and August 31st is my recommendation. And that is per the plan dated March 25th, 2024.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any question? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard? I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anybody waving their hand. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
A second on that motion?
Second.
A seconded motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, at this juncture, will entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions with an additional condition that no work be performed from April 1st to August 31st in order to comply with the recommendations of Natural Heritage's letter of May 10th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Good luck, Alan.
Thank you very much.
We're moving on to number 6, and that's a public hearing on DEP file 15-2737, NOI 24-33. It's from Stephen DeFrancisco to demolish an existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with associated grading, utilities, and driveway within bordering land subject to flooding and the 100-foot buffer zone to both a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank to Lake Nokichoke. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, and 10.56, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. It's on land described as map 79, lots 79-6. It's otherwise known as 718 Reed Road. At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, no, there is not. 2 points. First one is a point of order. I think when you read into the record, you said file number 2737. It's 2732 is the file number.
Okay,
Okay, so I think that we need to correct that for the record. Secondly, I sent a copy of a letter with a revised plan and some revised text to the application, which was originally incorrect on both the plan and the application. And in that letter, Mr. Joseph Levy, the engineer representing the applicant, requested to continue this hearing until June 11th because Mr. Di Francesco is out of town and could not attend tonight.
okay. Does any commissioner have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience that's here this evening on this particular matter and wants to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until June 11, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So
at
moved.
the applicant's request.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to the 7th public hearing, which is DEP file 15-2734, NOI 24-13. It's from Roy Naveria D'Souza to construct a 16-foot by 36-foot in-ground pool with a partially surrounding 8-foot to 10-foot patio. It's within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, and the applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02 and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the bylaw. It's on land described as map 42, lot 14-1, otherwise known as 2 Grace Lane. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
A second motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Is there somebody here this evening on behalf of the applicant, or is the applicant here?
Yes, Terry McGovern from Zenith Land Surveying here representing the D'Souza's, and I'll share my screen. Hopefully now you can see let me just reduce the size slightly. Hopefully you can see the plan up here in color on my
I
screen.
don't see anything yet.
Let me check that then. Share screen. Post disabled participant screen sharing. We'll try it again. Okay, it should be up there now.
I see it now, and I do see color.
Yeah, there was one extra click I had to make there. The proposal in front of you is for the 16 by 36 in-ground pool located in the rear of the house at 2 Grace Lane. We had done an initial plan, and Mr. Garrett noted that there was an issue with the area to the rear, which we're working within the buffer zone to that. It had been shown previously as an isolated land subject to flooding. There is actually a pair of 4-inch PVC pipes that were installed through the property and through the adjacent property that have basically created a hydraulic connection along with a couple of small drainage swales that were created since the house was finished that now render this area in the back a bordering vegetated wetland. So we instructed Steve Schmiel to go out and do a new delineation, which he did, and also noted the extent of the drainage swales both to the rear of the property and to the front of the property on the other side by the driveway. So we've shown the buffer zones to both of those. And the pool and patio area, again, will be here in darker blue to the rear of the house, located just beyond 50 feet from the closest wetland flag of that BVW where the 4-inch PVC pipe runs through. And we have a small section of construction entrance located at the front of the property, which would be just within the buffer zone, or a little bit within the buffer zone to the BVW. Just span this out a little bit, located closer to the main road and closer to Grace Lane. In between, there is an intermediate drainage swale that we've shown that Steve flagged as well, that carries intermittent runoff through here, and that's outlined in blue. The BVW is outlined in green, the crescent in the rear of the property. And they're also proposing a safety fence shown in red, basically running the backyard area and surrounding the pool. And with the construction entrance coming in this cobble-shaped area to the north or to the right side of the house if you're on the driveway coming in. Very minimal, if any, grade change. It'll just be leveled out for the patio area and the pool. We've shown just a very, very minimal amount of grading with an elevation of 54 just outside the edge of a pool apron to show that that would be fairly level in that area. We're showing in the area of the construction, we're showing the silt sock with the toe in as required on the detail. Over here to the right side, we're towing that in 6 inches, and we've noted the date of Steve's updated delineation on there as well. And with that, I'll take any questions from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, again, what observations and recommendations does staff have on this application?
Just for a little background, this is the former Bioli subdivision. Mr. Bioli lived in the house in the lower portion of the plan that Mr. McGovern is sharing with you right there where his cursor is. And the site was subdivided into 3 lots. Lot 2, which is the subject lot in question, and then lot 3, which is lot to the north. This site was was altered. I don't want to say wetlands were altered necessarily, but the site was altered. It turned into a large grass field. I believe its original nexus was kind of for soccer. I don't know that it was a complete soccer field by size, but it was pretty good size for kids to certainly play small-sided soccer and practice. At the time of the original subdivision, there was a lot of concerns from the neighbors about drainage. And as part of that approval, there were several drainage features, the swales and the PVC pipe, that were incorporated to deflect and reroute drainage away from existing neighbors along Chase Road, which Chase Road is actually to the left of this plan. There's a series of house lots between these houses and Chase Road, which would be to the east. Grace Lane, as it's labeled here, daylights through a curb cut onto Chase Road and comes in to the former Bioli property and then takes a right angle north in front of the 2 subdivided lots. And those lots are very craftily put together to gain, the frontage and the square footage, which is typical of civil engineering practice. Mr. McGovern did allude to questions that I had. I knew the site and knew that, isolated conditions were turned into bordering conditions, and isolated conditions did not have buffer zone under the state act, but did under the local bylaw, so the plan had to be recrafted. And I think they've done that, and they've done that correctly. This is an in-ground pool directly behind the house, in an area that is grass. There's really no forest or scrub except for the bordering vegetated wetlands on the perimeters of the overall parcels. Certainly not anything impacted. Lawn area would be impacted. It's a fairly large pool, but certainly falls within the confines of the yard area. And staff is prepared to make a recommendation to issue a standard order of conditions as per this plan, May 7th.
So Mark, you're saying the staff's recommendation is standard order of conditions in accordance with the plan of May 7, 2024. Is that correct? Mark,
Yes,
was that correct? That staff's recommendation is to issue a standard order of conditions in accordance with the plan of May 7, 2024?
yes.
Okay. All right. Is there any commissioner that has a question of either the applicant's engineer or staff? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there may be in a butter. We're not seeing that person because of this. We're sharing a screen, but there may
Yeah,
be
but
somebody
does
who wants to.
somebody have their hand raised?
I don't see that person anymore. I'm sorry.
Okay.
They were there when we went to share screen. They are now gone.
Okay. So I don't see anybody either. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes. Yes.
And Nat?
Yes.
Yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions in accordance with the plan dated May 7, 2024.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to the final and eighth public hearing.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good evening to you.
Thank you.
It's on DEP file 15-2738. It's NOI 24-24. It's on the after the fact notice of intent from George and Moses to restore the unauthorized plant removal of native plant species, to remove yard waste and a treehouse, and to construct an addition within the 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal wetland. The applicants also wish to conduct periodic vista pruning on the coastal bank and within the subject to coastal stream flowage. It's on land described as map 12, otherwise known as 27 Gaffney Road. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved. Second.
There's a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, is this a matter they want to continue as well?
They don't have a choice.
They don't have, it's true. They
They.
didn't have, their application fee came in late. So because of that, we have no choice but to continue.
I'll summarize it for you, Mr. Chairman. We received the file number today, 26. But that's not really the cause for the concern. This was filed, the paperwork was done. He did a preliminary review, it was administratively correct. And we noticed last week that they had not paid their filing fee. And they paid their filing fee on the 23rd. And it was approved by the tax collector also on the 23rd. However, until the tax collector approves, we can't send out the legal ad for publication. The tax collector approved it late in the afternoon. We did not send the legal ad out until Friday. Therefore, it did not meet the filing deadline. So no legal ad could be posted for tonight. Therefore, it has to be posted for the next meeting, which is 6/11. Therefore, this has to be moved to the 6/11 meeting night. And it has been legally noticed in the paper for that night. We had no choice.
Thank you for the more detailed and correct explanation. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing in accordance with the notice which was published until June 11 or June 11, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. Are we really continuing it? We can't hear it.
Well, technically, we when it was read in and everything, we have to. It's on our agenda, so we have to do something with it. I understand your point, and it's a procedural point of whether or not there was just a mistake on our agenda. But I don't know that it matters as long as we're going to have it heard on the 11th as it's been advertised properly.
Is a better word, Mr. Chair, rescheduled?
Rescheduled? Yeah, I guess that might be a better word, Richard. Now that I think of it, that might be a better rather than a continuance. But honestly, this isn't a rescheduling because the only scheduling was for June 11. It just got on our agenda with today's date. And so it's really, I think, more an agenda
Scheduled.
issue.
Scheduled instead of rescheduled.
I think what I'll say is I'll entertain a motion to acknowledge that this matter, which is item number 8 on our public hearing agenda for this evening, is correctly to be heard on June 11, 2024 at 7 p.m. as noticed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes, that motion passes unanimously. That concludes our lengthy public hearing portion of the agenda. We'll now move to the items for discussion. There are no bills, so I suppose that's fine. So we're going to go to the discussion topics. And Mark, I'll let you lead off.
The first one is the CPC draft language that Kyle presented a copy to me and I sent out to all of you. So I'm going to turn this over to Kyle since he's been working with Buddy on this.
Yeah, so Buddy this is really a really rough draft. He expects to have something a little more in depth at the next meeting. He was going to look into how other towns in the state are currently trying to overcome this hurdle of the towns basically having to purchase or be a holder of the conservation restriction in a CPC funded project. And what I brought up at the CPC meeting was basically if you go down to implementation, the third bullet down, it says Conservation Commission establishes agreement with private entities to jointly hold CRs. And I just brought up that, and I think Mark has brought this up before, we want to make sure that there's no extra financial burden or extra workload burden placed on conservation staff. I briefly went into it with Mark that if private entity acquires the property and the town purchases a CR and retains the responsibility for administrating it, who's going to do the work? Who's going to pay for it? And obviously, our department's way too small to be doing stuff like that. And so I'm not really sure if that's going to work. Mark had suggested possibly a working group between me, the chairman, and Buddy. Like I said, this is just really a real rough draft. Just wanted to get that out there to you guys.
I got a question, Kyle, because when I was reading it, I appreciated the fact that you sent it to me as well. And I appreciated that it was a rough draft and it wasn't something that was even being presented for us to critique the specifics, but to more or less think about the issues. That's how I viewed it. Okay. But what do we know what other towns have actually addressed this and how they came to a solution? Because I can't imagine that there are many towns that have conservation staff large enough to handle that as well, unless they have very few properties that come under a CR or that are acquired. So I'm just curious if there is, maybe we should look and see how they did it, not necessarily copy their language, but just to see how they address this issue.
Yeah, I guess that's what Buddy has been kind of looking into towards the next community preservation meeting. Like I said to Mark, I feel like this is just this is the state. They want to see it corrected, but this isn't really the correct manner to go about it. I mean, I'm no professional, but it seems like it could really get tangled up in the weeds really quickly if the towns are holding these CRs. They can't be they have to be checked on once a year. We don't have the staff to do it. And Buddy even suggested later on, I think on page 2, creating some kind of an endowment fund to pay for that work to be done. But when I had the discussion with Mark, he said, it'd be tough to find someone that would be willing to do that work every year. So, like this is just a rough draft, and hopefully going forward we can find someone to mirror and move on so we can continue to do open space stuff.
Yeah, I understand Buddy's thought there, because frankly, before I really thought about it, that seemed to be a solution that came to my mind as well. It seemed to be a solution that would work. But then the more you think about it, you just see the impracticality of it. And it'll take an administrative assistant to oversee that. We don't have that either, right? So, yeah, I think I'd be very curious to see if there has been a vetting of this new interpretation and how other communities have dealt with it. Maybe some just are going to ignore it, but I wouldn't. I think that's a perilous path. And I'm sure that Buddy wouldn't take that path anyway.
No.
Yeah, I don't have any suggestions, because when I thought about it, I said they're kind of, they put us as communities in a tough spot because we've been relying on others to basically do the lifting, and we use the funding to help that happen. And now the state is saying, well, time out. That's not what the money was set up to do. It wasn't to help others. It was to help the communities. But in reality, that really wasn't helping others, because they were helping the community,
Right,
It was,
right.
it really was helping the community, that town of Dartmouth in particular in our case. So I don't think any of the monies that have been previously spent were spent improperly on projects that didn't fit the requirements under the statute, but creating the community preservation commissions and the funding for it. But
Mr. Chairman, if I could make two comments. First,
yeah, go right ahead.
I think that, what the state is looking for is fine, towns are purchasing CRs and state is matching funds, and the state wants to know that their investment is being well served. And the few people that I've spoken to have said, we buy CRs and we don't really look at them in terms of municipalities. I know DNRT is diligent. I know the Buzzards Bay Coalition is diligent. I know that Audubon is diligent and in their responsibilities with CRs, but that's more their business. The other issue, which we're finding on the front lines, is this really is not a conservation commission issue. This is a town issue. What is the town's commitment overall? We're the vector, but what's the town's commitment to these CRs? I mean, the Conservation Commission cannot be on an island isolated if nobody else cares in town. It's nice to say we have them, but what's the commitment to having them and maintaining them and implementing them, operating them, whatever verb you want to use? I think it's a bigger question, and I can tell you from my involvement, we like to say we're conservationists and we like to say we're environmentally conscious, but I don't know that that is the general strategy town-wide beyond, a conservation commission or a conservation staff or board of health or, DPW, whoever's dealing with, infrastructure, land, basically the land use groups, planning and the like. We have no back end outcomes, it's just, let's do it. It feels good. And I think the state is seeing that, and it's not just Dartmouth. I think they're seeing that statewide, because the governor would not have come up with this if she and her staff at, the environmental secretarial level were not concerned about this. And we're living in a world, I was meeting with Dan Gouliart today on something, and, we both came to the conclusion, these projects are all great, but it's competing interests for limited funds, limited public funds, whether it's state funds, whether it's local funding, whatever the case may be. Funding is limited, and it's being grabbed at by many more elements in need. And, social programming is probably, one of the priority targets for most politicians. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, I'm a little concerned about what is the community's real commitment. It's not a question of whether I'm committed or Jen is committed or this commission is committed. Where's the support for us at the end of the day? And that's why.
Well, I think that's a very global and unfortunately a very deep question to ask, because we really have to have sort of a town-wide referendum, because the select board's going to take its cues from what it thinks or perceives the citizens want, and then they will be the ones who ultimately give the global guidance to the town department heads, including whoever is our new co-town administrators. So there's going to be a lot of thought that needs to be put into the answer to that question. And it's a lot more stakeholders than Conservation Commission, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, I think in a sense that the town kind of does at town meeting when they approve these, hundreds of thousands of dollars in CPA funds to be used to acquire open space. So I think the town meeting members and the residents out there support it. It's just, are they gonna support servicing that for the next 50 years, 100 years down the line? I think that's what it really comes down to.
Well, I think you're right, Kyle. I don't disagree with that at all. I think you're 100% right. And in situations that I'm familiar with, basically the town's aware of the fact that they're committing monies that were set aside for this purpose as well as other similar purposes that are consistent with the Community Preservation Act, right? So they think, well, that money's already been set aside, and that money came from a surcharge on recorded documents. Okay, so great. We didn't have to, as individual taxpayers, pay more real estate taxes in order to do this. It's something else. But if you tell them, here it is, you've committed the money, $200,000, $300,000. You put it aside, you've committed it. Now you're going to get some state funding and some other people are going to put money in, but we're done with putting money in on that project. That's
Right.
an easy vote to get versus saying, well, now the work has begun because now we have to make sure we're good stewards of this, which means there's going to be some money that needs to be spent. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the general revenue of the town.
Mhm.
Not money that normally the CPC money comes from.
Right.
So it's going to come from the ordinary revenue of the town. And most likely, in order to do a credible job, that means you have to hire somebody to do it, which means you have to add the staff. And now you're talking about their salary, their benefits, their retirement package, and on we go. And it becomes an administrative cost that the town, to my eye, in the last number of years, has been reluctant to absorb. And just look at I think every department in the town will tell you they're understaffed.
Yeah.
Okay. And the town hasn't shown any, and I say town like it's all the citizens, but the administration hasn't shown that that's a priority to fill space, to fill spots, or to add staff. And the reason is it costs a lot of money. And I think that goes back to the taxpayers. The citizens are saying, we don't want to spend any more money on real estate taxes. They're high enough. Which, I mean, whether you think they are or not is debatable. To me, cross the border to our friends in Rhode Island and see what real estate taxes are like.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to other communities and see what their real estate taxes are like. Dartmouth is a bargain. But, that shows a lack of commitment to pay for things the town needs.
Yep.
In my view.
Yep.
I'm not one to want to spend money either. I'm pretty miserly, but what's the old adage? You get what you pay for.
Mhm. But we'll see where this goes at the next meeting. See if Buddy's come up with any other towns or anything in the state that are doing anything different.
I'd love to see that. I'd
Yeah.
really love to do it. And if you want to have a subcommittee, and Kyle, you want to be on it, you can count me on it. I'll work with
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
All
I have connections to the town of Orleans. I'm acquaintances with the town treasurer, so I can certainly reach out to them over there, see if they
Great.
reviewed this or if they have any kind of insight about how they're going about it.
That'd be
Um,
awesome.
That'd be great.
Being on Cape Cod, there's plenty of CR viability over there, so I'll definitely do some legwork and try to find out about that too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that'd be very, very helpful. I appreciate that, Liz. Does any other commissioner have any comments?
Just a quick one, and sorry if I missed it, but what's the timeline on this?
That's a good, no one brought it up. So you didn't miss it. It hasn't been
Okay, I
said.
get it.
Yeah,
Making sure.
there really isn't a timeline on this right now. This was just a super rough draft. Buddy was even hesitant with me bringing it to the commission right off the rip, but I said it has to get out there and we gotta at least talk about it. Like I said, he was looking to do some research. There's no real timeline on it. It's just gonna hold up any future open space CPA funded acquisitions until it's figured out how it's gonna work.
Okay, so the new rule is, sorry, the new rule is effective then.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
just a matter of-
apologies. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Now, there are other projects that qualify for that money that are not preservation of open space.
Right, right.
So most likely what would happen is if we don't have our ducks in a row on this, that money will get allocated to those other projects.
Got it.
So,
Yeah, the last one that was approved at town meeting, that got caught up in this at the state level, and they pushed it through and allowed it to continue the way it was, but it was kind of like, this is gonna be the last time that this happens. I believe that was the one,
So the second Russell's Mills one.
yes, yep.
With Saunier and, I forgot the other name, but it was those parcels, I think.
yep, that was off of Woodcock Road and
Yeah, it abuts the current, Nick Wildman, I know he's on, but he's muted. He might be able to help a little bit with identifying which one it was. It was Saunier. What was the other name, Nick?
It was the Booth family.
Booth, that's right.
oh, there you go. That did ring a bell. Thank you.
Now, and just if I may jump in, to point out, more recent than that was the CPC money allocated to the Buzzards Bay Coalition regarding the Christopher Cornell property on Slocum Road, where, they kind of took a different stab at that, or a different approach, whereby the town ended up being the purchasing agent, the entity, to hold the property and fee while the coalition holds the CR. And I think that's pretty creative way to do it, although I don't know if DNRT wants to be in the position of trying to chase down the town for not holding up elements of a CR. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So it's a great idea and we could try it, but then it puts us, if people are somehow going on town-owned land and clearing or dumping or whatever, DNRT goes out and does our inspection. And, we have the only people we have to go after are the town, I guess, for compliance. The other thing I just want to add as a point of information as folks think about this is that DNRT is also in the situation where we're understaffed. And so we contract out some of our CR and reserve inspections to a professional entity, and it's around $450 per year per inspection, per property. So that can add up when you're holding a CR in perpetuity, of course.
Yes, it can. And when you have a number of CRs, not just a few.
Right.
So I think Mark is probably right on the point as to why this particular legislation was implemented. There's just too many requests for a not growing pie. So they're cutting the slices thinner. And if they can eliminate some of the people who qualify to get a slice, then they can give out to others. I think that's probably it, Mark. I don't think you're wrong there. Anyway, I have nothing more to add tonight, but like I said, Kyle, you can put me on that subcommittee with you. I'll be happy to do it.
Good.
And I think it should be, I'm not sure it should be with Buddy as well, but I'll let you be the point person with Buddy. Okay.
Okay. That
'cause
works.
I think you and I can work as a subcommittee, and Liz, if you want to join us with the information from Orleans, that's fine. If you want to just join us, that's even better, but I don't want to commit you to that. And then I think, then Kyle, you'll have information from us as Conservation Commission of what to present to Buddy.
Excellent. Perfect.
I think it'll make it easier for him too, rather than have committee meetings where he doesn't need them either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kyle, you can include me in on that too with staff.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
And probably if you don't, I mean, I'll say probably what we should do is meet over at your office, Mark.
Sure.
You know, if you got time, we'll just do it there.
Sometimes, can you give me dates that you're available? We'll do it. We'll set it up.
Okay,
All right.
very good.
All right, Mark, what's next?
Well, the next thing was the draft wetland regulation discussion. If there were any further comments. I'm still waiting for your comments, Michael.
Hey, I just wanted to say hi, everybody, before I bug out.
Thank you, Mr. Retired.
Hey, how you doing?
And Mike,
Good.
Yeah, right.
Boy, this is like old time sake here. Hey, Richard, you behaving yourself?
I am, Mike. How you been?
I'm doing well. I'm
Good.
doing
Mike.
well.
Hey, Mike.
How's everybody? Hey, I'm gonna bug out and let you guys continue with the meeting. Boy, this has been fun. Hey, Mark. Hey, keep up the good work, Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
Try to
Nice
sit
seeing
here
you,
real
Mike.
soon, okay?
Let's see.
Your boat in the water, Mike?
What's that?
Is your boat in
yeah.
the water?
Oh yeah, it's been in the water a couple weeks.
Enjoy.
Yeah. All right. Good night,
Have a great
everybody.
summer.
take care,
Night,
Mike.
Mike. Night,
ya.
Mike.
So just getting back, Mike, I know you're busy with your community commitment there, but still waiting, for your comments on the regulations. So, and anybody else who wants to chime in. At
Yes.
this,
So we'll put it down for the next meeting because,
it'll be down every meeting.
well, because Mike, oh no, I'm wrong. I was about to say something which would have been wrong. I'll say, well, by June I'll be out, but it'll be the end of June I'm out. So I'll have to get it done before then.
All right. You want to move on to enforcement?
I think we may as well. Let's enforce something.
Okay, well, they sent out, unfortunately, and again, I apologize, this agenda has been torturous to get through in terms of setting it up and finding out who's ready and who's not. I did put together 2 draft enforcement orders. The first one is the Round Hill Beach dune damage that I reported to you last time.
Mhm.
We did get the police report, and I had incorporated my comments into it. And I think that I have put together a draft which pretty much sums up what needs to be done. And I want to get this signed, sealed, and delivered. And I want to get it up to the state so they're aware of it, as well as, our town council and ourselves and the violators. So I'm looking for an approval of that draft enforcement order to go out. To be finalized and go out.
I'll entertain a motion to authorize the finalization and dissemination of the enforcement order for the Round Hill Beach dune damage.
So moved.
Second.
We're going to have a roll call vote on a seconded motion. So it'll be Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a second draft EO that I put together, and this is for a property on Nathan Drive. The property is owned by one Joshua Rose. We got a complaint, probably 2 weeks ago. Jenna went out, took a look, and the complaint that was raised was pretty much invalid, which we find an awful lot when neighbors gripe with neighbors. But what she did observe was some violations on an abutting property. So she put together a letter, notice of violation to the individuals. They received it, called us back. And if I want to put it kindly, the person, Mr. Rose, was somewhat edgy with Jenna. Maybe more accurately, was pretty belligerent. He said, I can put trails in, it's my property, I can do whatever I want. He's putting in ATV trails, he's carving up the wetland. He does not appear to be, although I have not spoken to him directly, I think I spoke to him today, he didn't choose to identify himself and he hung up. But I may be wrong, but I just, he was asking for Jenna. But anyway, I think he needs to understand the seriousness of what's going on here. So I am proposing an enforcement order for the restoration of dirt bike and ATV trails and through the wetlands, restoration and filing of permits to do the restoration.
I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm yes. That motion passes unanimously.
And before we break out of enforcement, I did not put this down. Unfortunately, I just didn't have time to. But I want the commission to know that, you know, we have over the past few weeks gone from averaging 1 to 2 enforcement issues a month to now 3 to 4 a week. You know, the citizens are just doing what they want. They're not abiding by the rules and regs of, you know, and some of these are multidisciplinary. They're Board of Health issues, they're conservation issues, they're zoning issues. It is really becoming a little bit more commonplace. There is a disenfranchised public out there and they're showing it, and it is taking up, we're writing a lot of letters and, you know, discussing a lot of EOs, whether we should go that route or not. And, you know, tonight, I think it's very appropriate that we issue these. So I'm just making you aware that there is a lot of enforcement, and we're getting runs in which we go out and the conclusion of the A1 is you're in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw. I mean, that's the conclusion, and they're looking for a wetland to get flagged, you know, and so it's just it's taking an uncomfortable turn from our perspective, but I'm just making you folks aware of that at this point.
No, I appreciate your observations, and frankly, it doesn't stun or shock me.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, one of the things that concerned me, I mean, we talked about that Bergeron Lane paving. And, you know, I brought it up tonight during the Borges hearing. And, you know, and I think, Richard, you and I are kind of on the same page on this one. You know, somebody, whether the project is a good project or not, at the end of the day, there are rules and regulations on how to do these things. And people are just going around doing whatever they feel comfortable with. And again, you know, my concern is about community commitment, because this particular enforcement order, if it was, or enforcement issue, I should say, if it was to go forward, it'd be a pretty expensive thing, because we talked about deed research, conveyance research, all sorts of stuff to find out who is actually responsible for what, where, and how. And we know that there are, you know, there are violations under, you know, the wetlands laws, both state and local. We know that there are violations under DPW rules and regs. And, you know, there's like this resistance to move forward on it. And I get it, because it's expensive. I mean, I understand that, but by the same token, if you allow this, then you've opened the door to, every paper street can get paved, if somebody wants to pave it. They talk to people, they get it together, and are they filling in streams that are in the paper street? What are they doing? But, if you're not calling to task these things, and it's painful. I mean, on the front line, when you look at somebody, when they say, I have no money, I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, yeah, I'm sympathetic up to a point, but if you turn away, you're creating precedent that I don't think you want to be dealing with in 20 years, because it's going to be really out of hand.
No, I think you're completely correct. Without a doubt, if you have rules and you have regulations, those rules and regulations have to be enforced, and they have to be enforced uniformly, consistently, fairly. We can't turn a blind eye to things we know are violations. Otherwise, let's just get rid of all the rules and say there aren't any. Can't go back to the way it was in 1950.
If you're not enforcing the rules, I can retire. What do you need me
I mean, so look, these rules were put in place for
for?
a reason, because without them, important things and it's not just with conservation, but important things to the public health, safety, and for our environment were left to the decision-making of individuals who made poor decisions. Okay? Which is exactly why the rules came into place. All right. That's why I remember back in the old days when you had a gasoline station, they dumped the used motor oil into the ground. Nobody thought twice about that. And now they've got contaminated soils with property that nobody would in their right mind would buy, and they can't. Now they're lamenting the rules are taking away the value of my property. No, you did when you dumped the oil there. Okay, and look at the mills that they had, how much contamination. Look at New Bedford Harbor contamination. Without rules, you can't rely on the public to do the right thing. They'll do the expedient thing.
I think it's about awareness too. I think, many departments and jurisdictions in town, it's no fault of anyone's, but there's got to be more awareness, whether it's, mailings that get put out when somebody buys a property in Dartmouth, or, just some other ways to figure out how to get some of these things aware to, first-time home buyers and things like that, because to your point, you can't rely on an individual to go to the town website and educate themselves on the Dartmouth bylaws or the state laws. But, I think, another way to combat that, unfortunately, is putting some time into bringing awareness to the severity of not educating yourself on some of these things. Me being a newcomer coming into this, I had no idea some of these regulations, and it's a lot to learn, but I think, putting the awareness out there for, people that are less educated about it is something that could certainly be considered. Of course, that takes time and money, but
well, I agree with you. I think education is a very important component, but having said, and I agree. I'm not going to say that's wrong. I think that's right. But what I've observed are people who don't want to know.
Right.
Okay. So I'll do it, never even going to town hall or calling and saying, hey, I'm thinking of putting a pool in. Is there anything I need to do? Now, I made a bad example with the pool because they know enough to go into the building department. Okay. They know that. But there's other things, like I want to clear this field in the back of my yard. Is there anything I need to do to make sure they don't want to know that? Why? Because they're just going to take, they know that there probably is something they have to do, and they don't want to pay to do it.
Right.
Okay. And what they don't understand is that with our wonderful satellites all over the world, we can see the changes in their property.
Right.
Because most of these people figure there's so much in the woods, no one's going to know what they're doing. Guess what, guys? Uncle Sam watches you, baby. You're gonna get caught, okay? It's just like, it's the most amazing thing, but they figure no one's gonna know. Yes, we do find out. And when we do, it's worse than if you asked.
Right.
Okay, it just is. And there's no, and I think that's where the education point comes in, to let people know you're not going to get away with it. And that's where the enforcement action comes in that Mark started talking about. If we don't enforce these things, they'll figure there's no harm, no foul. It's like the parents who say, don't cross the street, and the kids do, and nothing happens. And it's like, well, I guess that was an idle threat.
Mike, we went through this before a couple of weeks
Yes, we
ago,
did.
and Mark was perfectly correct. Without the law and without the rules, they keep the barbarians from the door. And if we don't have them, why don't we just pack it up and we'll have all our Tuesdays off?
Well, I'm in agreement with enforcement. Not because I like to see people in trouble. I don't, but I'd like to see the rules obeyed. And if you don't enforce, they won't obey, right? We just as a simple example that everybody knows, there are speed limit signs on almost every road in the United States. And if policemen never pulled you over and gave you a speeding ticket, how fast do you think the cars would be going? A hell of a lot faster than the speed limit.
Yeah.
What keeps them at the speed limit? Because they're worried about their safety? No, because they're worried about getting a ticket. And in some cases, getting pulled over and having other things, like the unlicensed handgun or something in the car. That's why they obey the speed limits, if they obey them at all, because there's enforcement. And I think the same thing holds true all right across the board, including conservation. So enforcement is a critical component to compliance. That's it. I mean, there you've got my political beliefs in a nutshell. But that's the way I feel about it.
The purpose for me bringing it up is just so that you're aware that if you notice, and I would hope you would, that there is stuff happening that doesn't look right, you're right. It's happening and it's not right. And, we're trying to catch it as best we can. And I think we get a good percentage of them, but stuff slips through the cracks and takes a little bit of time, to catch up with. And, it's just, it's occupying more and more of our time. We talk about, going out and looking at CRs. I'd love to go out and look at CRs. Yeah, a lot better than looking at violations.
Yep.
And getting into arguments.
Right.
It's,
Yep, I agree.
all right, I'm done.
Me too. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and it's seconded. So we're going to do a roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat. You're muted.
Yes, sorry.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a
Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.